Excellent. Right, I think we're ready to go. Last panel. Many thanks for joining us this evening, making it through to the end. We have quite a collection of people on the last panel here to talk about automating O and EMS workflows with desktop Interop and FDC3. Just by way of introduction, I'm sure most of you know what FDC3 is. But FDC3 is a messaging standard that was founded by OpenFin back about 3 years ago now. We subsequently contributed that messaging standard to the Finos Foundation, so it's a messaging standard now owned by the industry and not by OpenFin, and it's there for everybody to use, but OpenFin is certainly the biggest platform with a large number of apps today. But it's incredibly important that the whole industry continues to support FDC3 to drive higher usage and adoption. We all have a role to play in that, and that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. Where are we on that journey? It takes a long time for standards to be adopted, but I think we'd all agree that we're seeing more and more movement around FDC3. And I thought a great way to kind of kick off today's panel discussion would be, to get that mark to market. First, I'd like to introduce the panel. So we have Brett Schechterman from IHS Markit. We have Dave Shack from Fidelity, Andy Mahoney from FlexTrade, and Dr. Robert Barnes from London Stock Exchange Group. So Andy, perhaps I can start with you and ask you, where do you think we are with FDC3, the awareness across the industry, and the demand from end clients? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you for inviting us on this panel. I think you've definitely appreciated that you've stuck around so long, and you've definitely got the all-star cast up here as well for the headline slot. So what I would say about FDC3 and OpenFin is that we've been banging this drum since about 2018. We announced at Trade Tech 2018 that we were partnering with OpenFin, and FDC3, I think, was just a glint in someone's eye at the time. But I remember we were part of one of the original people involved in the OpenFin buy-side user group as well, and we came along and we discussed notifications bus and how we could alert IOIs, etc., onto the blotter. But the key thing that's changed for me over the last year, I would say, or possibly two, given COVID, is 3-4 years ago, we were maybe getting one question on our RFP saying, what is your OpenFin strategy, or what's your desktop Interop strategy? And it would be one question, and you'd tick the box saying, yes, we've done something with it, and you'd move on. Now it's nothing like that. It's a very engaged conversation that clients are having with us as an EMS vendor. They want to talk, the CTO typically wants to talk to us, head of development, developers want to understand not only what we're doing today with OpenFin and FDC3 in general, but what is our technology roadmap? Are we planning on decomposing the application into constituent parts and making them OpenFin available? Or is it that we treat the application as a homogeneous unit and just have sort of hooks coming off it? Generally, the discussion has moved on from its kind of trouble ahead, FDC3 or OpenFin, to being something that we actively embrace and discuss with our clients on an almost daily basis. I would say there isn't an RFP that's happened in the last 2 years that hasn't included at least a workshop on FDC3 and OpenFin.
Thanks, Andy. And to move on, David, I think you're ideally placed, large asset manager, just give us your mark to market. Where are you on your FDC3 journey and your thinking at the present time?
So from our perspective, I think we're kind of at early stages. I think we're starting to build out. We've got a large number of applications, both obviously internally built. We're obviously partnering with a lot of vendors on and have a very diverse business and business case. But we're definitely sort of setting up that strategy to say, look, our traders are increasingly being asked to do multiple jobs, which then doubles the amount of applications on their desktops. We know the pressures with working from home, and now you're no longer just going to put the 6th monitor up or the 7th monitor up on a trading desk. It's about that desktop efficiency as well as that workflow automation going on. But so we're definitely we know it's coming. We're actively buying into that, and as sort of Andy, you were saying, like I think I'm been out there for like a year or so, or probably more, sort of talking to vendors, saying, look, this is going to be important to us. This is important. This is as we're looking to both our existing vendors to say, look, this needs to be on your product roadmap, but ultimately, if there are vendors out there in competition who are not embracing this, this is going to be a differentiating factor. This will become a headwind, for folks who aren't sort of looking at sort of how they integrate their applications with that sort of desktop. I think what's really important for us is sort of, as we think about our internal applications, yes, we're looking at how to decompose and sort of message between them. Yeah, let's make sure we embrace that standard between our own applications, as well as, and not just doing that in isolation, but let's talk to our strategic partners, like folks that we have here up on this dais now, to say, if we can understand how you're thinking about that, let's get that de facto standard sort of how we should use it, the sort of interactions. Let's get that going now, even though we're not ready to sort of necessarily execute on all of them, because that way we're going to be ready when we are. We're all going to be in the same place. Things will be a lot more plug and play. And that's really, really important for us as a company to make sure, it takes time for everyone to get ready. And it's about building that critical mass. And I've definitely seen that turning over the last year in terms of our conversations, in terms of the response back from vendors. Before, people were like, well, no. Now it's like, yeah, look, we get it, we're doing this.
Yes.
And they're not thinking about it as that, oh, well, we're in OpenFin, but it's just one big homogeneous application. Yeah. It's like, I want your panels to be able to dock into my workspace so I can pick the services I really need from your tool sets. And I think, early days for us, but it's really important for us going forward.
Yeah. And you touched on the kind of workflows within that, which are super important, and that discovery around workflows, which I think is where the industry needs to, more and more work together to understand, think through the possibilities and so on. And Brett, I know with thinkFolio 2.0 kind of coming up, you've been spending a lot of time thinking about kind of contextual workflows and enhancements and so on, and what the user might really like. And maybe you can share a little bit about your journey so far.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks, Adam. It's a journey we've embarked on, more recently. thinkFolio being an application that's been around really 2 decades, leading multi-asset class capabilities, but servicing a range of user personas. I know we're very much focused on the order management and the execution, really the trading landscape, but the way that we have to think about it from a product perspective is through that user persona lens, and really the reusability and the composability, the orchestration for PM versus a trader versus a compliance user versus somebody who's managing and hedging cash. All those things have different lenses. So you want components to be there, but how we bring things like the risk return paradigm with risk and attribution insights to the desktop, incorporating time series, exposure management, right? All those things need to be uniquely thought of, right, through the lens of the product team. And I think the toolkits that are out there need to be able to not only bring IHS Markit content in terms of the modules there, but central to our core strategy has been, we're going to continue to focus on what we believe is our USP, and we're going to partner with the likes of execution management systems who are focusing on nothing but building leading edge workbenches for the traders, whether single asset or multi-asset class, making sure that their productivity desktop utility is fully optimized. And it's all about, whether we're talking trading, it's about high touch, low touch, no touch, and driving automation. But bringing more of the content directly to the users on a proactive basis. Typically, a lot of the applications today, you have to go search for something, right? So we're thinking about bringing a lot more smart analytics and using Notification Center, right? Depending on which user happens to configure a given workspace, right? It's similar themes. Sebastian and Ravi spoke about it earlier. Think about a legacy desktop where it's very much focused on secondary market trading, where primary market activity has been bifurcated. Because we have the enterprise power of what IHS Markit is doing in book building tech, our analytics and our data capabilities, and then something like thinkFolio on a buy-side desktop, we can configure without context switching, bringing primary and secondary market activity, pre-trade decision support tools, and enhancing the communication between those cross-functional users. Mm-hmm. So how does a PM and a trader communicate? It's not just the trading desk. We have to think about it through the lens of all the variety of users, and we want to continue to offer those modular capabilities to offer up in an app store or an app suite. So that's the way we're thinking about it, not just within the front office, but across our solution stack, front, middle, and back.
No, thanks for that. I think that makes a great deal of sense. Very consistent, as you say, with a number of the presentations we've had this evening. Think about those kind of componentized views, different providers, but linked workflows, importance of notifications and the like within those things. And Robert, to bring you in here, so if it's super interesting. You're a vendor, a provider into the EMS and OMS, and providing really data in this context for buy-side traders and actually sell-side traders as well. But maybe just share your journey, because I think it's interesting because you are live with a solution that is FDC3 compliant. Actually, you partnered with FlexTrade to enable that. But yeah, maybe if you could share a little bit of your journey with us.
Yes, no, thank you, Adam. Well, how do you do, ladies and gentlemen? I'd just like to share with you the remarkable story. 8 years ago, when asset managers that are looking at trying to solve a problem about order books, as they've electronified, shrink trade size, how do pension funds put big orders in without having market impact, and why that becomes even more important when interest rates are so low and demographics, people are getting older and living longer, which is a good thing, but they need to have long-term financial health, and they need the efficiency to compound long-term investment returns. And as we've been focusing on solving this block trading puzzle, the market model with the orders coming from the buy side to the sell side to us as a humble market operator, it was actually 2 years ago at the International Trader Forum where I must call out with thanks Madeleine Dessol from Wellington Management, one of the great trillion-dollar asset managers from Boston, and very well respected, but very rarely stand up in public and said, we're looking at our traders every morning. They have to sign up to about 27 different applications, and now we're going multi-asset. We don't have any real estate. We're going all in with OpenFin. And at that event where you had lots of equity dealers and us humble market operators, we were like, what is OpenFin, right? And of course, there was Adam Toms, and he was there to explain this OpenFin. We decided, this is quite fascinating, because for the first time, we have an opportunity to take block data and actually communicate it through the OpenFin bus directly to a partner like EMS provider like FlexTrade, go straight to the buy side. And why does that matter? For two particular reasons. One, we've seen that block trading, when you do it very efficiently, gives a great result for the end investor. And we tend to see there is a correlation of blocks when other blocks are happening. And so to be able to communicate immediately to the buy-side dealer, to allow them to immediately act and try and engage through the sell side back to us, that brings a lot of efficiency. Efficiency for two particular areas. One is kind of high-touch decision-making, but ultimately operational efficiency. And I think one of the beauties of this story is that together as an industry, humble market operator, buy-side, sell-side, EMS, OpenFin with this lovely protocol, we're very pleased to say 2 years later, we've taken our corporate data warehouse, we've put it into the cloud, we've done a lot of investment, but we've now got a system that everybody in the industry can now use to help get a better result for the end investor. That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. And so, just going on that, just picking up a couple of things there. So, there's value embedded in getting that data, those data insights to the traders, in real time, not buried, but very much visualized in a slightly different way. And also this, easier kind of integration. And we talked about that earlier on other panels as well. But we talk about it, but maybe Andy, you can share with us, is it easy? Does FDC3 truly make it easy?
So I just want to clarify one point. It didn't take 2 years to develop. That's really bad. No, I would say probably the turnaround time from getting the OpenFin the API delivered to when we were able to deliver it onto the desktop was under a week. It's extremely easy with things like OpenFin, and hopefully, if the technology works, do I press up or down or exit? None of them. Okay, can I move on to the next panel?
Here we go.
It's not even showing up there.
There
Okay, perfect. There you go. So yeah, just to give it some context about the problem that we tried to solve, or we did solve, as Robert so eloquently put it, he is a venue sitting on the right-hand side of Turquoise, and essentially we are predominantly a buy-side execution management system. So our clients are the buy-side that would be looking at the trading desktop, looking at the blotter, and the challenge we were trying to solve was the venue has information about what liquidity is going through their pipes at the time. But the buy side might not realize that that block liquidity is actually executing. So what we did was, had a simple problem. We wanted to get data from Turquoise into FlexTrade and present it to the user to then start innovating. Now, traditionally, this would have been very proprietary, something that we would have to build on an API basis for Turquoise. And importantly, then every other EMS that Turquoise decided to do this work with would then have to build the same interface. So what Robert cleverly did was put OpenFin in the middle of that and made the OpenFin bus the area that we communicated with over here. Oh, you can't see it. I was hoping to be quite cool there. Oh, it's that button. Okay, everything's moving. Okay. Don't know whether we can go back, but essentially OpenFin solved the problem of getting the data from Turquoise and publishing it out to a bus that we can very easily access. And as I said, it was a week's turnaround. It was very simple, very straightforward. And importantly, not to undersell myself, it's open to everyone. It's not tied to FlexTrade. It's not tied to any EMS. It's presented in a standard normalized layer that allows any EMS, any other application, be it thinkFolio or any other application, to access that data, because we may find use cases for it in the future that we haven't actually thought of. But given the use cases we had, I'll again try to use this, but if we can just switch on to the next slide. We embedded the data into the blotter directly. So this is a FlexTrade execution management system. Each order is keyed by a symbol, side, and quantity. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see about 6 columns, which are data coming directly from Turquoise about the block liquidity that's executing on the platform at that time. So it's analytics data. It's not raw market data. So we don't need to worry about latency. It's just analytics, like what's the biggest block that's gone through. And then we have one derived column, which is the little bar on the left, sort of middle of the screen, which is showing you how much of your order, as a percentage, how big is your order compared with the largest block that's traded in Turquoise. So if a larger block is traded in Turquoise than your whole order, that's a pretty good indicator that you should probably get into Turquoise. So what we did was, rather than focus on the plumbing, which is getting the data from Turquoise to FlexTrade, which was solved by OpenFin, we could then start concentrating on the innovation side of things. So we could look at, I don't know who I'm directing, but I'll just say next slide and hope that someone does it.
I want to pretend it's not me, but it is me.
Yeah, Adam, this is literally a dream come true, telling you what to do. So on to the next slide.
Orchestration.
Back a slide, forward a slide, back a slide. No, if we can go on to the next slide, please. So basically, we embedded that into our rules builder, our alerting engine and our rules builder, which once the data is inside the system, it can be used for many different kind of workflows. So the simple example that we've got here, if you just click through, it'll explode the size of the things. But essentially, we're just building alerts around Turquoise analytics data, saying a large order has traded in Turquoise, an order that's twice the size of your order has traded in Turquoise, a large in-scale order has traded in Turquoise, all information that clients, buy-side traders, will need to know. Then moving on to the more exciting bit, we've actually established a rules framework, which is, if you imagine on the left-hand side of this rules framework, I'll try and point again. Here we have, it's essentially a generic if this, then that rules builder. Very simple. It doesn't take away from the programming that you can do behind the scenes, but it allows a drag and drop rule to be built. So on the bottom, you have an arrival rule. So when the order hits the blotter, we check versus the amount of shares that have traded in Turquoise today. And if it's larger, like the trades in Turquoise is larger than our order, we will automatically route that order 20% to a Turquoise wheel and 80% to a Turquoise preferred broker. Then as a dynamic rule, so we're constantly reevaluating the information we get from Turquoise, we say if the largest trade size in Turquoise is larger than my order size, then again do the same profiling. And beyond that, essentially, if we can move to the next a couple of slides, beyond that, we can configure these wheels. Wheels are essentially just a set of brokers beyond that. So you could say the Turquoise wheel would be 5 different brokers or 10 different brokers which have Turquoise selected as a preferred destination. So this is a real-life example where OpenFin has solved the problem of the plumbing. Essentially, it's got data from one place to another, so we, as an EMS vendor, can concentrate on the innovation rather than concentrating on how we actually hook the pipes together.
And may I just add why I think this is so special, what you've actually done, Andy, is, of course, asset managers are very keen not to reveal information. And this is almost like the next generation. Some of you may have heard of the term blotter scraping, where a buy side has to allow foreign software in to actually see the positions and then try and manage things. Here, through an augmented desktop, right, we're able to broadcast the information directly into the FlexTrade screen. And then the buy side, it's only their positions that are relevant, where you get the insight, and then either they can push the button or they can be at lunch, and these rule engines can actually send the orders through. So this is really a tremendous advance, and it really brings a confidence in the marketplace, but also it increases the probability of getting a match in one of these really important blocks. Thank you.
And David, just thinking about this, when we look at kind of different workflows within EMSs and OMSs, one of the things that's been coming up quite consistently is, where does the FDC3 message kind of begin and end? Where does fix begin and end? Our view is they don't compete with each other at all, but actually what you do need to do is really be very careful and thoughtful about what is right for a desktop-based message bus and what is more a back-end. So, but how do you think about that?
No, that's a great point, and I think I definitely have been in conversations and meetings where it's been presented, and someone said, "Oh, so it's a replacement for Fix then?" It's like absolutely not. I don't see that at all. I think Fix is well established, adds a lot of value. It's there for the sort of transactional data. Send an order, receive executions, order state change, things that we need persistence and resilience over. I think where I see FDC coming in completely complementary to that is then it's the workflow automation, it's the sort of centralization of some of that sort of broadcast data rather than sort of that transactional data. And I think it serves a very different purpose. I don't want to create an order over FDC3. I think that would be a huge mistake. I don't think I want to send a message to an EMS to say, please pop up your order entry dialog and fill it in with these and have a trader press a button. I think one could, but again, that wouldn't be. I think that it's not automated. It's not where we want to be. So I do think that they are very different. I think what we need to focus on really is talking about what are those workflow stories that we want to automate with FDC, especially in the OMS, EMS space. I think there's a lot of demos you see, well, that's great, it's a news blotter, it's a charting graph, I type in a stock ticker and everything moves. And that's really important. Same thing with sort of maybe fund or portfolio.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, I think where there probably is a bit more work that we need to do as an industry is get together is like, okay, when I send an order via Fix, or a group of orders or a list of orders, my order generation system wants to tell the OMS to now go focus on those, so they're already there for a trader to review, maybe approve, see what compliance violations or what's passed and what hasn't, and same thing with the EMS. Yeah. And I think there's just some work there to do on some of those more order routing stories, not rounding the order, but changing that context, providing those order IDs, etc., will be extremely useful for us over the next sort of few months, hopefully.
Yeah. So part connectivity, part contextual workflows, and Brett, do you agree with that in your analysis and what you're looking at the moment for thinkFolio?
No, absolutely. I think I think everyone will acknowledge the overhead and pain of upgrade cycles and trying to do that across applications, that are serving different purposes across the front office and enterprise protocol and the wait process and UAT and testing. And, some of those things, obviously, it's clearly necessary to take advantage of new functionality, right? But when you're literally just trying to get context, data sets, or workflows synced across applications to make someone's life a lot simpler, to increase their productivity, that's where the FDC3 power comes in, and to the point around, I think it's the extensibility and how opinionated or aware the messaging is around specific asset classes in terms of the context that can be passed, whether it's a single security, it's an issuer, it's a basket, it's an ETF, it's a portfolio trade. I think there's going to be unique workflows and unique context depending on the type of trading scenario. If it's relative value analysis, I want to focus on a specific subset of securities to evaluate, right, and move them from different tools as I come up with my trade ideas to then pass them across to the trading desk. And then also some of the context switching and the collaboration that's happening between the execution desk and portfolio construction processes. I think the fluidity of those processes is really where the FDC power comes in and streamlines the end-to-end and the efficiency. And not only that, but clearly desktop real estate with people working in a hybrid mode, maximizing that real estate
Really
and,
helps.
and getting the most out of that screen space.
Yeah, I think what you said there about FTC3 kind of powering productivity. I think that's a really good point. And so we're out of time, and it is the last session. And at this point, we normally rattle through the whole panel and ask everybody for their words of wisdom. But in the interest of time and the bar, I thought I'd give the prize to Dr. Robert Barnes, because he's the only one on the panel who put the FDC3 live in production right now, and it's available, so congratulations again. But Robert, what would your advice be for people starting out on this journey?
Well, I would just say, look, this is the start of the journey. Our experience with OpenFin and your team has been fantastic. I think thanks very much to FlexTrade for using their R&D to try and innovate. And I can see Anita in the front row representing kind of Plato partnership, the buy side and the sell side, trying to come together to innovate for the end investor. If you think in 5 years together, we've done over €1 trillion of midpoint potential price improvement electronic blocks. And now we've been able to be the first venue to really respond to what Wellington asked for a couple of years ago, to actually provide this high-touch decision-making, operational efficiency. So what comes next? It's working together with you, and on some of those nice illustrations that Andy was showing, is to actually embed insight that's relevant through some quantitative analysis. And last year, we showed a few videos at FinJS about what might happen. This year, we can actually show the reality because it's now live. And I'd like to call out, is Paul Humphrey in the audience? BMLL, right? Right, chaps? So if you take a look at teams like BMLL who can actually take data and very quickly say, that was quality execution. The buy side can find the block, they can prove the best execution and move on to the next trade. And that's exactly what we want to give the best result on a continuous basis, the very definition of best execution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. And so I think some really nice, consistent messages this evening. We have more work to do as an industry around the workflows and the role of FTC3 in discovering those workflows. It really takes all of us to participate for it to be successful, but more and more it's being adopted, which is brilliant. We're super proud to have been the founder of that standard. We are even prouder that everybody in the industry is behind it and owning the standard themselves, which we think is truly, truly fantastic. And our thanks certainly to London Stock Exchange Group, to FlexTrade for getting an FDC3 implementation live in the marketplace. David, thank you for sharing the insights of where you are at Fidelity. And Brett, I know you and the IHS Markit team are very, very focused on these workflows around FDC3. And I look forward to seeing in future FinJSs just where we've got to. But for now, that is the end of FinJS. Thank you so much for coming along. We really appreciate everybody who attended in person. We know it's been a really difficult decision for many, many people. Thank you to everybody also who joined virtually online. We look forward to unveiling future FinJS dates early in the new year. But for now, I wish you all well for the holidays, and thank you for being great supporters and part of the community. Thank you.
Thank you.